Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. This is my first video of the year and I'm really excited because it's also the start of a new series that I've got for this year. Now, I love writing. I've been writing since I was about 5 years old and I haven't stopped since. When I was 7, I spent my school holidays writing one short story for every single day. And for the longest time, my biggest dream has been to write a novel and have it published. That is what I plan to do this year and that's why I've started this series. This is going to be kind of like a video diary. I'm going to be giving updates on how my book's going. Also sharing a few little tricks that I've found helpful, maybe sharing some quotes and some encouragement, things like that. Because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are wanting to do the same thing this year. It can be daunting, it can be very easy to give up. I have finished 2 novels before, not published, but they were both around 70,000 words each. So I'm not entirely new to this, but I know that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to be learning. So yeah, if you think this series could be encouraging to you as a writer, or if you want to see me fumble my way through a novel, then be sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date. But yeah, let's get started with the video. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, the book that I'm writing is fantasy. It's an idea I've had for a few months and it's been really fun to, refine it, get to know the characters a lot better, flesh out the world, things like that. But something about this story that's different to other stories I've worked on is that it calls for me to invent names. A lot of the time when I'm writing, it's either realist or historical fiction or urban fantasy. So I don't think I'd ever actually realized how difficult it is to invent fantasy names. My goodness, it has caused me grief. The number of times I'd be plotting my book and realizing I have to invent a new character and then bash my head against the wall because I really don't want to have to come up with another name, please. It's been pretty hard, there's a lot of things to think about when you're inventing names. Is this name too hard to read? Is this name too common? Oh, I found the perfect name, but it doesn't fit with the world. All that kind of stuff has happened in this process. But you know what? I stuck with it. I started adding a bit of structure and now I'm actually pretty confident at creating names. There'll still be a little bit of anxiety when I realize I have to name someone, but it's definitely not freezing up in panic. And today I'd just like to share a few of these tactics that I use when creating names. If you have your own tactics that I don't mention in this video, I'd love to hear about them, so please leave a comment if you do. So the first thing I did before I created any of the names that I currently have in this book is define the feel of the world's language. Basically, I looked at the world and I thought, if these people weren't speaking English, what would their language sound like? Is it sharp and staccato? Is it billowing and elegant? Is it slow and meandering? I took inspiration from real world languages to really drill down on how I wanted these languages to sound, mostly Latin and Arabic with a little bit of Japanese grammar. You don't need to be that specific. Next, I decided which phonics would be used in my new language. I started with simple English phonics, removed some of the outrageous ones, and removed a few letters of the alphabet. I also added a new phonic that I see in a few other languages, AU pronounced ow, and just like that I had a foundation for my names. You don't have to stop at phonics, you can add apostrophes, hyphens, circumflexes, anything you want. Now that I had my foundation, it was time to make the names. Some characters I've found really easy to name, like the name would pop into my head instantly. Other characters have been really hard. When I get to characters like that, it helps to have techniques that specifically target individual character names. So now I'll be sharing some of these techniques that have really helped me through this whole process. The first of these is one that helped me name my big bad. I found that big bads are hard to name no matter the genre, but especially fantasy. So say you are wanting to name your big bad, you got a big nasty villain, warlock, wants to kill the orphan main character, generally not a nice dude. And for the sake of argument, let's say that this story has a European setting. I might go ahead and look up something like evil in Indonesian. Alright, so right away Google Translate has some good options for us here. I don't speak Indonesian, so I don't know if any of these translations are accurate. It doesn't really need to be accurate. This is really just for inspiration. This one here, the main one that they've given, is a little bit wordy, so I might look over here. Jahat, that has potential. Malang kind of reminds me of that show with the adorable bunny, so I probably won't pick that one. Durjana, I think. Sorry if that's very wrong. Don't worry, this technique isn't just using Google Translate. There's a little bit more that I'll get into. Alright, so I've got the potential names in the Notes app. I did end up using Malang, it kind of grew on me. It could be used for something. So the reason I chose Indonesian as an example when the story is set in European-like setting is that we're now going to take these names and change them so that they fit more with the context of the world. So take Jahat here. If we were to make this more Euro, we might want to replace this J and turn it into a GI. Jahat, you wouldn't be able to tell that was originally Indonesian right away, would you? And then perhaps you put a little R in there. Jahat. Honestly, I really like how that name looks right away. I think I'll have to put that on a list if I ever do end up making a story like that. Jahat. I don't know how it sounds for a big bad guy, but I really do. I kind of do like it. Malang, it's kind of on its way to sounding European. Mal is evil in a lot of European languages. But maybe if I changed it to a double L, and maybe instead of an NG, we made it an RN? I don't know, again, I don't know how bad guy that sounds. Maybe if we changed the A to an EI and then replace the G. Mullane. And then maybe if I put the G back there, Mullane. Mullane sounds a lot like malign. It could even be pronounced malign. I can see that being the name of a big bad guy and like a tongue-in-cheek kind of play on fantasy tropes. Dejana. Well, right away I think I would change that U to an E. And I might change that J to an I. Duriana, I can see that being the name of a pretty menacing female villain. So in just a few short minutes we have Jahat, Malign, and Dariana. I think those are all pretty good contenders for a big bad guy name, depending on the genre of the story that you're writing. I actually really like Jahat. I said that before, but I think that I can kind of picture how he looks, you know? You know, he's kind of a cool, collected businessman kind of type, you know, in the shadows, pulling the strings behind the scenes. Kind of subconsciously reminds you of Giovanni from Pokemon. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Malign, again, very tongue-in-cheek, but you know, if I was writing, you know, like a Shrek style, you know, poking fun at fantasy kind of story, I would keep that in mind. I think that might end up on my shortlist. And then Dariana. Dariana, I can see her right away. She's up to no good. She knows that she doesn't care. So yeah, you know, this is one of my favorite techniques because, you know, not only do you get some really unique names out of it, but you also get to very subtly hint at the character's personality. Probably not too subtle in Malign's case, but you know. This next technique is pretty unique and I actually liked it way more than I thought I would. Basically, the way it works is that you take an existing two-syllable name. You take the second syllable and move it to the front. And the first syllable, you mix around the letters into an order you like. For example, Michael becomes Caleb. I find this to be a really helpful technique when there's a name that I really like for a certain character, but it's anachronistic and doesn't fit the world, right? I've come up with some pretty cool names using this technique. For example, Cydia, which is Daisy. You know, you see the second syllable and then the first syllable. Another one is Aldra, which is Harold. Vinek is a cool one. I really like that one. Or even something like Fios, being Sophie. Now you can probably see the limitations of this technique, you know, there aren't infinite two-syllable names. But you know, if you're really stuck for names, this has gotten me out of many a pickle. Now this next technique, I'll be honest, I've looked down my nose at it. I was very skeptical of it at one time, but then when I actually used it, I was surprised by how effective it was. Now for this one, you want to take all your rage about not being able to find the right name and express it to the keyboard very violently, like so. Hopefully you've made a delightful mess. Now what you want to do is go through your letters and sort of space them out like this. You don't really need to have any names in mind at the moment, just whatever feels right, and then adjust. So Zaskill is one we get right away. I can see Zaskill working for a genre of fantasy. Jediva, I really like Jediva. Fuba, kind of. And just like that, in a matter of moments, you have some contenders for names, some obviously better than others, but still. And you know, once you have this sort of inspiration, you can adjust these however you like. And you know what? It's pretty fun to smash the keyboard every once in a while. Writing is hard, writing is so hard. Every so often, I'll come across a character who's so important that it seems that they intrinsically have a name tied to them, and I can't, for the life of it, figure out what it is, but no other name will do. Such was the case for the protagonist of my story. I picked out so many names and tried so many techniques. He rejected all of them. He was not going to have any of those names. And it was so frustrating because I felt like I couldn't connect to the main character of the story without knowing what his name was. And any of the placeholder names were just going to distract me. For him, I had to create an entirely new technique. It was pretty similar to the Google Translate one from before. I flipped open my Bible and went to the genealogy of Jesus. I read through the entire thing, looking for any name that could possibly work for him. I'd tried baby name generators, I'd tried history books, nothing was working. If I didn't find anything here, he was just gonna have to have a mediocre name and I would have had to have been fine with it. But I read the genealogy of Jesus and there it was. The perfect name. It said exactly what I needed to say. It was reluctantly heroic, it was sort of mysterious, it was a few other things, but I'm not going to go into them because spoilers. But I looked at that name and instantly I understood this character. All I had to do was get rid of the first I and change the pronunciation to Elakim. So there's your first little insight into my book. The main character's name is Elakim. I'm really excited to share more. But yeah, just sharing that because sometimes naming a character can seem like an impossible task, even with all the different tips and tricks you employ to try to get it out. But don't give up hope. Think outside the box and you will find that name, don't worry. Well, now that I've talked about those techniques, I would like to talk about one of the biggest traps that I fall into when I'm creating characters, and that is readability. A lot of the time I'll be writing and I come up with a name that sounds really cool on paper, but then I'll go away for a little bit and then read that section again and realize that I cannot for the life of me remember how that name is supposed to be pronounced. Worse yet, I'll find myself staring at the paper trying to figure out how I'm supposed to be saying this word in my head. For this reason, I do like to err on the side of caution in terms of complexity in names. I'll tend to keep my names pretty simple because I don't want to risk my readers being emotionally disconnected from the story, and that can happen if they don't know how to read their characters' names. There's a few ways that you can avoid this. I tend to not use Y's a lot in my name. That could just be me, but I find I have to pause a lot when I see a name that uses Y as a vowel. That could just be me. It probably is just me. But another more surefire way to ensure readability is getting a second party. And so that's just what we're gonna do. So for this, I'm gonna need to use the names of 5 characters. They'll all be names that I invented during this video, so I haven't had time to, test them, see if they're easy to read. This will be a genuine reaction. The first character we'll name after our girl, Deriana. The second will be named Vinek. The third will be Zaskil, because I think that one, of all the names that we've come up with, that one has the most likelihood of tripping him up. The fourth character, our man Jahat. And the fifth will be Aldra. Now, I've written up a short story with 5 characters and I'll insert these names here and there. It's not Shakespeare, but it should help us know if our second party has trouble reading the names. All right, I am back again with our second party and his name is?
Benjamin.
Delightful. He's dressed in some wonderful attire, isn't he? Perfectly normal. No idea why anyone would have any problem with it. All right. So, Benjamin. I have a little game to play with you. And the game is called reading. I have a short story.
Significantly less fun.
I have a short story here for you. And I would like you to read it in full.
Okay. Is it good?
No, not really.
Okay.
All right. That's the whole thing. Just read it.
Okay. Can I read it? Should I read it out loud or just read it?
Just read it out loud, yeah.
Deriana was having a wander through the village when she spotted her friend Vinek riding a unicorn. Whoa! Cried Deriana. Where'd you get that from? Oh, the unicorn? Laughed Vinek. Quite dashing, isn't he? Found him in the forest last Tuesday. I've been calling him Zaskil. He seems to like it. You're not meant to have a pet unicorn without a license, you know? Ooh, a license, said Vinek, making ghost noises and shielding his face with his arms. You really are a goody two-shoes, Deriana. Who cares if I have an unlicensed unicorn, The unicorn police? Precisely, said a portly man in a fancy hat as his unicorn trotted up alongside Zaskil. The name's Captain Gearhart, chief of the Royal Unicorn Police. Did I hear you mention that this corn is unlicensed? Vinek gulped. Well, sir, he began. I swear I was only kidding. I've only had Zaskil here for a little over a week, and Gearhart chuckled a little under his breath. What's so funny, Captain? Asked Deriana. Oh, nothing, he sighed, patting his unicorn on the neck. Just that our 2 corns both have the same name. No way! Cried Vinek. Zaskil? You don't mean to tell me you're a fan of Aldra the Wizard's Wacky Adventures in Atlantis? Of course, I have every season on DVD. Zaskil was my favorite character, obviously, but Aldra was an awfully close second. Same here! Oh, what would you say your top 5 favorite episodes were? Vinek and Gearhart kept blabbing on about such nonsense for hours, and Deriana watched on in horror until the sun went down. Ah, I suppose it's getting late, said Vinek. I'd best be off. Yes, you'd best! Yes, you'd best, whispered Deriana indignantly. And you'll be free for an Aldra the Wizard marathon at my place on Saturday? Asked Gearhart. Wouldn't miss it, said Vinek. With a cheerful wave goodbye, Vinek turned on Zaskil's reins, and the 2 of them began to trot down the road. Deriana raced after her friend. What about the license? She cried as she ran alongside the unicorn. Shouldn't he have given you a fine or something? Oh, that's never happening, laughed Vinek. I wonder why they don't teach these sorts of things in schools. Justice is no match for common interests. Zaskil began to pick up steam, and Vinnick whistled a victorious tune as they both dashed off into the nearby forest.
Brilliant. Well done. Out of 5, how would you rate that story?
Do you mean like out of a technical, is it good? Or how funny was it to read?
Whichever's more important to you.
4.3 out of 5.
You're not going to say which one.
You can guess which one.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Cool. Am I...
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. No photos, please. Thank you.
Right, so that was actually pretty interesting. He didn't struggle with most of the names, like 4 out of 5 names he was fine with. He had a different pronunciation of the word Zaskil, which is cool. That didn't affect his readability at all, it's just interpretation. The one name he did seem to struggle with was actually not what I expected, it was Jaha. Not because he pronounced it differently to how I expected, but because he paused. It wasn't confusing enough to just make him bleep over the name, but it was eye-opening. Second parties are a great resource, and I keep underestimating how important they are. There could be any number of names in my story that I think are fine and I know how to pronounce, but if I gave them to an actual audience, they would have no idea how to read them. So yeah, that's pretty much just what I hoped for from that experiment. Most of the names were fine. We got some interesting pronunciations, which I wasn't expecting, but we also got a clear struggle name, one that I thought was one of the best. So yeah, that pretty much brings me to the end of my video. If you want me to keep going with this series, please let me know. If you have any questions about how my book's going, I might be able to answer them in a future video. And if you're writing a book this year, I'd love to know about that too. So yeah, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Oh my goodness, why did I say those all in the same sentence? I feel sick to my stomach now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.